Euthanasia is defined as deliberate action taken with the intent of ending a life in order to relieve persistent suffering. In today's society, euthanasia of terminally ill patients is often frowned upon. It is legal in very few states, and in many states it is prosecutable. Although many believe death by euthanasia is inhumane, granting all terminally ill patients the right to die allows them to have death with dignity and brings an end to their long-lasting suffering. How many states do you think allow the right to die for terminally ill patients? C. 6 states. In the U.S., what percentage of terminally ill patients do you believe want to avoid hospitals and hospice care while they die? B. 80%. Raise your hand if you know someone who has been diagnosed with a terminal disease. The right to die debate began in the 90s when the entire nation was in argument on how to handle the case of 41-year-old Terri Schiavo, who had suffered a stroke and was in a vegetative state for 15 years. Supreme Court judges ruled in 2005 that she be granted the right to die. This case caught the attention of even President Bush and the U.S. Congress.
Terri collapsed one morning in 1990. Her heart had stopped.
When she finally opened her eyes, doctors said she was not conscious. Over the next several months, she went from rehabilitation centers to hospitals and back again, each day getting occupational and physical therapy. A battery of tests, including MRI scans, showed brain function remained significantly impaired.
After years of effort, Michael Schiavo agreed with doctors that there was no hope for recovery.
Terri has made the same movements, the same noises, the same sounds for 13 years.
Terminally ill patients who are affected by this controversy directly feel as though they are being robbed of their personal decisions. In the case that patients are granted the right to die, they can arrange for final goodbyes, relieve financial burdens, die with dignity, and most importantly, end their suffering.
A terrible, terrible, painful death. Why do we do this? Why do we make people suffer? It ought to be voluntary. It ought to be no compulsion, no monetary inducements. But if somebody wants to go, if they want to leave the party, so to speak, let them leave.
Patients who are not given this right oftentimes will refuse food and water so that they can still control the means in which they die in. This causes more suffering and a more painful death than euthanasia. Terminally ill patients do not have a choice to continue living. They should, however, have a choice in the way their death proceeds. The best long-term solution would be to bring the subject into more light. More cases should be taken to court so that people understand this is an ongoing issue. People should also understand the act before they judge it. There are limits within this act, including that a patient must be diagnosed terminally ill, have less than 6 months to live, be approved by 2 separate physicians, and also be in the right state of mind to request euthanasia. The intent of the right to die must be more clearly understood. In conclusion, the right to die is imperative for all terminally ill patients. Taking away a person's right and forcing them to prolong their suffering is inhumane. Euthanasia should not be seen as a devilish act. It should be seen as a dignifying act that allows patients to be at peace. Considering all the rapid advancements of medicine today, we should be able to grant any patient's wish. Patients who are terminally ill are searching for a painless way to end their suffering. Personally, I know how hard it is to watch a family member suffer with an illness. The patients will also feel more at ease and dignified in dying when they choose. I believe that if it is what the patients want, their wishes should be accepted. This will not only relieve their suffering, but families can also be at peace and say their final goodbyes. Patients should not have to fear that they will lose their mental or physical capacities. If a death is planned in advance, organs can be harvested and donated. No doctor or physician should be able to tell a patient how much pain they should endure. When there is no hope for relief, the patient should be in charge of their own life.